Welcome back, everybody. Here we are for starting our next videos of chess, and let's just get right on into it because this game goes a little long and I really just don't want to have 45-minute videos if I don't have to. So I will always put my side on the bottom for easier viewing purposes and orientation. So in this game I'm black, and he opens up with king pawn. I match standard stuff. And trying to avoid 4 knights because it's kind of closed and boring and slow and whatever. I decided to bring my bishop before moving my pawn out there to get it outside of the chain so he's not blocked in. It's whatever. But this is a little unusual. This type of sort of move position, whatever, as we can see, there's only 7 games available on this site that have had this kind of opening, this kind of position. It's just unorthodox to see this now, to see this here. So now I really do want to push my pawn to get my light square bishop open. If I can trade these light square bishops, that'll really help. Like I mentioned in the last video, one thing I really want to focus on is weakened squares and pawn structures and things like that to try and get a better understanding of the entire board as a whole. And fianchettoing, while really powerful, as long as you still have your bishop, does weaken some squares, and the further along a pawn goes, the further along you keep weakening these squares to their flanks. So that makes this a little bit of a nice target. If I could eventually get something there, or at least trade light square bishops, that'll be an advantage to me. So I'd like to do something like that as soon as I can. So let's open this guy up. Even just sitting right here for a nice pin is not terrible either. He decides to totally change. As you can see, of those 7 games that we had, now we're down to 0 games. It's kind of a total wasted move, weakens his position, messes things up, all for nothing. So what I see with this is that he decided to abandon whatever his thought or plan was, and he's probably going for some fried liver shenanigans. But if you remember the video series from about 1.5 years ago, sorry Makar, we learned that fried liver is not exactly very good, and chances are if the player is going for it, then I know I'm going to be a better player than him. So I'm not even afraid. I'm just going to let it happen. I'm not even going to bother trying to defend against it by like pushing this pawn or doing something else, pinning the horse. I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm just going to kind of let it happen. So I need to put myself in position to counterattack, and as long as this pawn is not pushed, I will be able to do that. So I'm going to bring my horse out so I can start attacking the square that I need to, and he does in fact commit for it. So he's targeting this square. I think technically the appropriate play is to castle. That gives him the opportunity to trade 2 pieces for a rook and a pawn if he likes, which I think is an advantage to me, because usually the rooks in the beginning of the game don't do anything. So if I'm getting rid of 1 rook for 2 pieces that he spent a lot of turns moving, then I think that technically gives me an advantage. My king ends up being 1 square closer to the center for late game, and it gives me all sorts of space and additional tempo through the middle that he throws away, especially while also even making his position weaker. So I think technically castling is the correct play right here. I just don't really like it. I know a rook and a pawn is basically equal to 2 pieces. I just don't feel that way right now. I don't really think there's going to be anything that I know of better than anybody else in the world to take advantage of what that situation may be for me. So I'm just going to go with what my initial plan is, because when I was younger, learning how to play chess and playing as white and in this type of position, when people would sacrifice this bishop here and attack my king, it scared the living crap out of me, and I just never understood it. It was like black magic, I swear to God. So I'm just going to hop in right into it because that was my plan, and I'm going to stick to it. And he takes, because generally if they're going to go for fried liver, they're also going to go for the sacrifice. So that's fine. That allows me to hop up here. As long as, what was I thinking? As long as this pawn has been pushed, I'm able to do this, or I guess if this horse isn't here, you can do that there. Just kidding, because this guy's still here. So as long as you've got this pawn pushed, you'll be able to go for that sacrifice and make all that happen. That forces him out somewhere else, and now that my horse has now moved, that discovers the freebie over on this guy. So his fried liver is gone, his king position is ruined. I mean, technically all I've really done is win a pawn, which isn't a huge deal. So I guess it's whatever, but his attack is gone, and maybe there's like a little bit of fear in him, perhaps. Like, holy crap, dude just threw a bishop away and made it work. So, you know, something like that always worked on me. So I know that he's going to start pushing this pawn, which he does immediately, gets an attack on my queen. And there's a couple spots I could go. I could run away here, or I could run away to one of these two squares. Going to this guy is just going to block where my knight wants to go. Pretty sure he's going to push this pawn, and my knight doesn't really want to go anywhere else. I could push my knight here. It would be a royal fork, so he would have to take. I could take back with the queen, and it would simplify the board a little bit. My queen would be a little invasive. If I had this position again, that's probably what I would do. I don't know if it's necessarily good or bad, but at least I wouldn't feel like I'm running away. So now that I've had my little attack, the next handful of turns is going to be him attacking and me taking time to run away, and then I get kind of stuck for a little bit. So I think if I had another opportunity, I would go with the horse instead and trade that off, and then just try and play from there without spending so much time on my back heels. So instead I choose to go down here. Again, I think one of these squares is probably better, but I chose to go here. I think, honestly, I forgot that my bishop was guarding my knight, so that's why I wanted to make sure I'm staying in line, because my knight's being attacked. So I think that's all that was. Then he drops his knight down in here to attack this pawn that I don't really have a way to defend. If I put my queen in one of these two squares, then yes, I could have. I could have, even if I, sorry, fruit fly, they're everywhere all over my apartment lately. Could have either brought my queen down to here so that it's not being attacked, that's fine, or even just moved it over to have two pieces defending on this knight. Either one of them would have been just fine, I think. So now I'm kind of in a slightly precarious situation with that, as obviously I don't want his knight to land here as it is, because it's going to fork and be pretty bad. So my options are either move the king to defend it, or castle. Sorry, I did too many things here. One of which, if I move my king, I protect the pawn, I keep my material advantage, everything's okay, but then I can't castle myself. And I'm going to need another turn at some point during the course of the game to free both of my rooks up. Otherwise, this guy is going to get kind of blocked in here and be a little unhappy. So I could do that as an option, or I could castle, sacrifice this pawn. I did win a pawn, so we'd still be equal on material. But I feel like since his king position is kind of messed up and kind of ugly, I would then have a much safer position. My rook would be in play. I'd be much more secure and kind of void of any threat from him, and we'd have equal material. And I wouldn't be hampering in my own rook for the future for the sake of one pawn. So that's what I chose. I don't know what's actually better or not, but that's at least what I chose, and I wanted to kind of put that forward. So I castle, throw the pawn away. He does the little in-between push now first, which is fine. He could do that first or second, it doesn't really matter. Offers up this possibility, but he's not going to go for it at this point. Maybe if he wanted to wait or something, because I still have no way of defending his pawn even if I wanted to. I take it back, I could. So never mind. But he jumps into it now. Only a couple options here. Gonna move the rook over so he doesn't just take it. And that sort of gives him initiative now. So all the tactics and all the sequences have now completed. I had my little fun, now he had his little fun, and now it's sort of an open board with initiative. Material itself is equal. He's got a couple of pieces in my area that are a little invasive. However, one of them's unprotected. So I want to focus some offense on that guy, see if there's something I can do to win some material there. His king position is a little messed up, but he does at least have some openings, so he's got some space. And I'm starting to be a little bit on my back heels now, but otherwise everything's still technically equal. He develops his bishop to develop his bishop. I guess maybe it's attacking this guy, but my knight is currently on it for now, so that's fine. And right here, there's actually a really strong move that I have as black, and I didn't see it. And in fact, this move is going to stay here for a good 5 or 6 turns, I think, where I could still take advantage of it at any point, and I just never saw it until reviewing the game later. So If you wanted to pause the video for a second, take a look, go ahead. If you already see it, then even better, just tell me I suck and in the comments, and we'll all move on and have a nice day. So I chose to push this little pawn instead, partially to block the knight square. That was the primary reason. I wasn't as concerned about the bishop taking this pawn just yet, but in theory, that's a secondary reason. And then a pretty, sorry, fruit fly, a pretty far distant tertiary reason would be to thrust this guy into the bishop and force him to move somewhere, but he would just back up a square. It wouldn't really be a huge deal, but at least it'll get the thought in his head, and maybe that's something, distract him from whatever else he's thinking of, because he's like, oh man, this could happen. But it was mostly because this horse is unprotected. I want to start trying to attack it, so I'm going to be moving my rook over, and if I can eliminate some squares where it wants to go first, that may be a way where I can just claim it for my own. So he takes this time to stop my advance. Usually if one guy goes 2 squares, the other guy goes 2 squares, so they can be deadlocked. If I just go 1, I don't really know. I'm not rushing my pawn up through here. It was purposeful to be just 1 square, so maybe he's planning on really getting in my area, I suppose, so that way I can't thrust up here. He would just en passant me. Maybe that's part of it, but seems like a little bit of a wasted turn, in my opinion, which is fine, because I'm on my back foot a little bit. It feels like I'm losing for the moment, so getting a free turn is, Jesus Christ. Oh, I got it that time. Nice. Getting a free turn is kind of nice, so especially because I'm not really doing too much. My space is completely gone. I've backed up too much, making just very minor movements that aren't very productive, so that's where we stand. By the way, the move I was mentioning a couple turns ago, yeah, it's still there, guys. It's still here, and I still don't see it. That's okay. My next couple turns are going to be bringing my horse out, bringing my rook over. I don't think it really matters which order I do it. I decided to go horse first so I can cover this square just in case he wanted to hop on in there. I don't know why he would, but I mean, I guess he could. Just move my horse out of the way. Defending the pawn? Sure, we can go with defending the pawn. I think part of it too was the World Chess Championship had been going on during this time, and grandmasters like to make a lot of knight moves once their position is sound and everything's good. There's times where they'll move a knight like 3 times to get it from like here to fucking somewhere weird. And it just seems like they're doing nothing, they're doing nothing, they're doing nothing. All of a sudden their knight is a god, and it's like, oh, okay. So I didn't really feel like him running down to home base was really that bad of a move at the time, I guess. It just seemed fine. I need to get this rook over here. So he brings his queen out, and I think now my move of goodness is no longer available. So I had multiple chances, but it is now gone. So rook comes over to attack this knight, and he is going to defend it with his bishop. So he's got lots of pieces all aiming down on me, like basically every single piece that he has. Everything is in my way, and very invasive and very annoying, and everything is defended, and I just feel like I'm being completely smothered. So at this point, I don't really have any idea what I can do. My bishop is useless, my rook is useless, this horse is useless, this queen is useless, these pawns are useless, this rook is definitely useless. My king ain't gonna do anything, that's for sure. So at this point, I kind of just concede. I just need to simplify the board, clear up some of these squares, and then start over. So I see that by bringing my horse out here, maybe we'll have some trades, lots of trades. I might even end up getting a double pawn out of it, but at least if I'm removing his light square bishop from the equation, removing this pawn on the diagonal might not be as bad, and it will at least free my rook up for an attack on the queen, maybe. But I'm probably going to get a double pawn for it. But at this point, like, I need these things gone so I can make some progress. So I bring my knight over, trade, 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 and then something interesting happened. Obviously, the intention was just to take it, and then, you know, maybe I have a discovered attack if my knight can go somewhere cool or fancy or do something. But something else happened. I mentioned in the previous video that one of the reasons I want to focus on, you know, pawn structures and foundations and identifying what good squares are and what weak squares are is because oftentimes, and this is one of them, I have stuff in good places and for good reasons, but I didn't realize it or I didn't understand why until later. So what I'm talking about is my rook is on a half-open file. A file is considered open if there's no pawns in it. It's considered half open if there's only one pawn in the lane. And it's considered closed if there's two, because they will be locked in epic combat for forever and somebody needs to help out and give them a 2-on-1 advantage. So especially when this half-open file is his pawn, my rook basically has total reign. It's also an unprotected piece, so a bunch of trades happened, the dust settled, the dust cleared, my rook happened to be in a really good position, attacking a really good pawn, and it really should have been on purpose, but unfortunately it wasn't. However, better late than never, I suppose. I do realize it, so I am going to get something for this after all. I snatch up this pawn, and because it comes with check, I don't have to worry that I didn't take this bishop yet. He ends up deciding to block with the rook, and that's fine by me. I'm now a pawn up again, and I've kind of messed up his little pawn chain a little bit. He's now got a couple different islands, which will be good because I'm about to get a double pawn anyway for it. So I make that trade. He brings his bishop out of oblivion to bring it back and defend some extra squares, get it towards home where it can actually do something instead of stare off into space. And then I finish all of those trades by taking that bishop. Moral of the story is I won a pawn and I doubled my own pawn, but I do have a discovered attack on the queen. And there's a little bit more going on with that too. This double pawn isn't the worst because they are all connected, so I can undouble it very easily. But I am kind of barreling down with some major pieces into his king's area, so things are not looking too bad after all once the dust settles. He does another little quiet move. He's just hampering this in. His one pawn is technically beating my two because I can't move mine, or he takes and then can queen. So I guess that's fine, but it doesn't really accomplish anything for him. It gives him a nice foothold for his bishop, but that will do nothing. And so I see something going on. I want to undouble these pawns, or at least use my pawn for some sort of benefit. I would like to move my horse, but my horse doesn't have anywhere good to go right now, or at least I don't think so during the course of the game. And then there's a couple other things right here that I do see that I think can work into me gaining more material very soon. So I proceed to go forward with this plan of undoubling these pawns. He takes it, and I don't know if I planned it initially when I pushed this to not take with the pawn, or if I did, I don't honestly remember. I feel like undoubling is actually what you should do, because then you have a nice pawn duo right in the center. It's defended by the horse for now, so I don't have to worry about him taking either one of these two pawns with the queen. But I do see that because of this discovered attack, I would like to actually use the horse instead, because I know I can win this guy if I do so. So I'm going to take this pawn now with the horse, so I keep these doubled pawns, which is a little unfortunate, but I guess I'll be alright. Because of this attack on the queen now, he's got to do something to move that queen or find a way to attack something more significant than a queen, which isn't going to happen. So he decides to move it down here, offer up a trade. If we do offer up a trade, he's going to have one pawn blocking my two pawns and one pawn blocking my two pawns. So that would be really sad for me. 4 pawns would be getting beaten up by 2. So I don't really want to go for that queen trade. Besides, I still know I can win this guy. So I'm just going to let that sit here. Heaven forbid I let him take the trade, and then my pawns are just the worst pawns in the history of pawns. But I do know that this guy has a nice protected square right here. It leads with check, so that means stuff is going to happen, stuff can change, and this pawn is actually pinned. Usually when you think of pins, you think of pieces like bishops or knights that are stuck to a queen and a king, but pawns can be pinned too. So this guy can't actually capture anything on this square, leaving me free to jump in here for check. What am I going to gain by this check? That's what's going to force him away from this pawn. He runs away over to the, I don't know, var something, which is just going to end up pinning his bishop, which is totally fine by me. And this now allows, Jesus Christ, so many fruit flies. This allows me now to take the queen, because I don't want to have double pawns of my own, and now this pawn is unprotected and available for the taking, for the grabbing, so that is exactly what I'm going to jump in on after he takes. So this kind of sucks a little bit, but I do think I'll be alright. I think I'll be able to take that back because I do have a little bit more of an advantage. My king is going to start marching on up, and I think I'll be okay. If not, then I screwed up a lot and I learned. So I snatched that pawn. His bishop is now pinned. I've got 2 pieces attacking it in a combination square. So all of that is really strong, and one of them happens, of course, to be a knight move away. So this knight has just become a monster out of nowhere. I don't know if it was the same knight that jumped around 1,000 times. I don't think it was. But regardless, so he forces my knight to run away somewhere, but again, this square is a combination, so I'm able to jump in on it, and this pin isn't anything because mine's guarded, and at this point the board is so simplified that that's totally fine. So I jump in and take another pawn. I've now taken, what, 2 pawns for this guy, 2 or 3, and yeah, because there was the one here, the one here, the one here. So he's now eaten 3 pawns, and he's going to end up being traded away for that bishop. So he was quite the monster, caused quite the commotion. Again, this square is still in combination. Jesus Christ, another fruit fly. So what I'm thinking here at this point is because this knight has done such a valiant service for the land, I guess it's time for him to retire. So he's currently blocking in both of my doubled pawns, and there's not really anything I can do to defend him. I guess I could make him run away somewhere and defend a couple of my pawns. But I think at this point, because he's taken a bishop and he's taken 3 other pawns, I'm okay with losing him as long as I get something in return. So what I do think is that if I come up here with check, it'll force his king somewhere, wherever, I don't know. I'll be able to gobble that pawn up while he completes the delayed trade of the bishop, and then I will further be able to not only defend this pawn, but attack his last remaining pawn, at least of any significance. So I will end up trading this horse away, but I know that it'll be alright because his rook isn't really going to be able to do too much. He's going to be babysitting these doubled pawns the whole time, because if he doesn't babysit the double pawns, then the double pawns will finally freaking win the game. So I'm going to go through that sequence. He runs away, I take the pawn, he takes the horse, I defend and attack everything, and now he's kind of in a rough spot. The game is basically over at this point. It's just a matter of asking the right questions and not blundering away my rook, and we'll just see from there. So I guess he's going to try and get in on some of these squares. I don't know exactly which one to make my king move, but my king is going to be a very sound defender. Oh yeah, my rook is guarding this guy too. So he's guarding all of the holes and attacking. This rook is doing amazing right now. And my king is going to be able to guard all of these guys himself anyway. So puts me in check. I don't care, because now my 3 other pawns are all guarded. Everything's guarded. This guy just needs to push up here, and then everything can be guarded, and everything is awesome. So he moves his king, and I want to stop and limit his squares, because right now his pawn can't move. This pawn, once I push up, will not be able to move, and his rook is totally worthless because there's nothing it can do. So at this point, he officially has nothing going on whatsoever, and I just simply need to not screw up, and I can very, very slowly now progress my way, moving all these pieces until eventually something gives and something wins. So he proceeds to move his king some more. That's fine. So now that my king is guarding this square, I don't really care if his rook goes there. He can't take it anyway. I wanted to block off, I wanted to seal off his king on this, not even a half of the board, on a third of the board, whatever, 3/8 of the board. And so this will allow me to just constantly slowly push all my way up. I'm still guarding that pawn, by the way, and I don't really care about him right now. So I just decided to seal the king off. None shall pass. He attacks this guy, defends this guy, but really none of those little moves make a difference. And I further go in opposition. When you've got kings that are 2 squares away like this, they're all targeting the exact same square, so neither one of them can move. It's called being in opposition. And it's really good both defensively and offensively, depending on who's trying to do what. To get this may be very advantageous for you and totally just block out an entire king. Because they're not actually terrible defenders, especially late game, because they can move anywhere, just slowly. So now I will be able to focus on moving my pawns. If you wanted to do this to put me in check, obviously I take it and I'm defending, as opposed to if he tried to block it off earlier and I take, he could take, and then I don't really have control. He'd be able to sort of sneak his way down in through these squares unless I move, but then I'm giving up the pawns for it. So I wanted to go in opposition first and just totally shut him out. So he moves around because literally he has nothing else to do, and that's fine. And then I decide, it's probably not smart of me to do so, but I decide just to trade these pawns off so that way I don't have to even worry about them. Just kind of limit the brain space going on. Trade, no big deal, everything's still defended, that's fine. And now I've got this whole thing totally sealed off by pawns and king. I've got a runner that would like to go if possible. Anytime I have a spare turn, if I don't know what to do, I can just run him down. Or he can occupy his only piece to stopping it, which is just fine for me. So I'll seal the king off even further, force it just to do nothing, and literally a nothing move. I make a little bit of a blunder here. I forgot kind of that I can't take back, so I end up throwing this pawn away on accident. Whoops. But if I can trade these rooks off, that would also be fantastic for me. So I would like to pin the rook to his king. It's not like there's any other move he can really do though, so it was never going to work. But at least now that I've pushed my rook up one square, now I can push this pawn up one square and keep it defended, so I can slowly work his way down. So my endgames are terrible. I'm actually really bad in the endgame, but I've either got such a large lead by the endgame or I've already conceded that it doesn't really matter. So if I get to this point, I'm usually okay, even though I'm bad at it. Random check to move him over one way or the other, whichever side of the board I could get him committed to, then I can just further keep him stuck and control it from there. So at this point now I have a free turn, I'm going to push my pawn up and keep covering more of these squares. And he decides that this guy is weak and he wants to go after him. And at this point, part of me is just bad at endgames, and part of me doesn't care. I don't really want to run the king away, because then he can take this square, and I mean, I guess it still would work out just fine. He's not going to be able to take anything, because he wouldn't be able to. Oops, he wouldn't be able to go here or here, because the pawn and the rook are guarding it. So I mean, yeah, it would still work. I would eventually just run this guy down, but it would be slow and boring and annoying, and I just don't really want to do that. So I'm going to get rid of his last pawn, because that's what I'm going to do, I suppose. If he runs the king away over here, then I will be able to defend, and then slowly sort of change the position of everything around, push the pawns and make progress. So if he goes after the rook, then we'll be able to just trade these two pawns off. So that's what he does. He forces me to move my rook. We trade these pawns. Oh, that's interesting. Winning. Basically every move I do at this point it says is winning. It just might take a while. What does this mean? DTZ? Next capture or pawn move in 2 half moves. Oh, distance to 0. I don't know what that means. Huh. Losing. Oh, I actually do have some losing moves. I take that back. Yes, blundering the rook away for free would be losing. Oh crap, what'd I do? There we go. Okay. So let's go back up to these. These aren't losing moves, these are winning moves. I don't understand. Anyway, where were we? Lost my train of thought here. Oh yeah, so we traded those pawns. I'm pushing my king up, so now I can slowly move my pawns up yet again, defending the rook. He goes in opposition, but that's fine because it's defended. He can't take it anyway. And if he wants to trade, that's fine. I'll have 3 pawns to nothing. So this is now some spare time for me to push. He's going to start to move over to get him. I'm going to push to get him on the same line as the rook so that he's defended. He tries to get me to run away to the wrong way and win my rook, but doesn't. He goes after this guy. Did I get it? Nope, I didn't get that one. Dang it. So he goes after this guy, but again, there's just nothing he can do at this point. I block off the king from even trying to march over here to eventually maybe win it. Actually, I would have to go that way. There we go. Got you that time, you stupid bug. And it's just a very slow, long process at this point. I don't really know how to analyze or if it's worth even bothering trying. He does finally make a little bit of a blunder. It was probably the same kind of thing I thought with this when I pushed the pawn, that he either couldn't take it or that I could recapture right back. He's probably thinking that we would just trade rooks this way, but unfortunately the kings are going to be too close, and it ends up being a total blunder. And that official... Oh, look at that. No, wait. These aren't losing moves. I think I just screwed it up, actually. Oh, losing for him. Okay, so the black means black is the winning team. Okay, yeah. Basically, every move is losing. Those are the only moves he has. They're all losing. Ah. So now it's just a matter of time of me... Oop, that wasn't what I did. That's what I did. I got a rook just to be insulting. But instead of thinking hard about what's the most efficient way, I'm just going to get 3 major pieces and finally close him out. So GG's all around. And let's just go back for a minute and take a look at some of these. Oops, hold on. Turn the computer evaluation on. Take a look at some of these options as far as what it's thinking, what it sees. As far as, game's pretty equal right now. Pretty equal, normal stuff, and that's a little unusual, but it has happened, I suppose. Pretty equal results, but again, very small sample size there. Looks like when played in Masters, no, yeah, black one, draw, white one, but those are ancient games by today's standards, so just a little unusual. And at this point, there's no more games like this. But it does like my position. Interesting. It wants me to push this pawn first. Oh, because it wants me to stop the fried liver. But I don't care. So that's fine. He goes for it, and as you can see, the computer really thinks that's a blunder. And yep, the computer thinks that you should probably castle instead, or even push this guy. But no, it does think castling is superior, and that's okay, I suppose. It doesn't really like my sacrifices. But I just think it's way too much fun, and that I really want to go for it. Force him to do some things, and just have it in the back of my mind, or the back of his mind, that shenanigans can be played. Yeah, so it thinks that, ooh, actually it thinks here is best, and here is second best? Huh. I would have thought that this would be the best one. Ooh, there you go, or that guy. Or it likes that guy a little bit. So, I run away. Oh, wow, wants to run all the... Oh, because that would get me super stuck. That's actually kind of smart. If he ran that up, what the hell would I do? I'd probably castle. That's probably what I would do. And then he'd push up one more time. I would have to run here. But then he doesn't have a pawn to attack my knight, so the fact that my knight couldn't run away wouldn't be important anymore. I don't know. Whatever. Now it doesn't like it. It likes what he ended up doing. So... so castling or moving over here. The bigger arrow is slightly in favor. Oh, nope, now it's changed. Oh, now it's changed again. The computer doesn't know. Really? Here? No, that just seems bad, blocking in my bishop. But yeah, either one of them looks just fine. Maybe slightly superior to move over, but I don't. So that's fine. Have to run away. It's curious. It wants me to do this first instead while he's still attacking my rook. But I guess minor spoilers with that. He kind of wastes a turn to move this bishop and do nothing. And now, minor spoilers, that was the move that I mentioned to you guys earlier. If there's something key that you could see that would be a good move, it is the knight jumping up here. And I never once considered it because it's defended by a pawn. It is good because if he does take it with the pawn, my queen, it's a combination square. I have multiple pieces targeting this square, and he only has one piece defending it. So I should have known, like, this is one of the exact things that I'm trying to look at and focus on. The queen would bring check, and it would also remove the defender of this bishop. So it would be the second time in the game that I could have traded a minor piece for a pawn and then end up winning a piece back and going a pawn up in the exchange. The first being with the bishop sacrifice, the second, had I done it, would have been with the horse, and that would have just been like, what the hell, man? He's just throwing minor pieces for pawns and making it work left and right, 2 times in one game. So that was the move, and I just never even thought of it, never considered it, never crossed my mind. But now I would like to try and consider things like that. Obviously, I'd like to get my bishop on this line, but it's just never going to happen. So, never once thought of throwing the knight out there, but that was indeed the move. So, anyway, we're getting 33, 34 minutes. I said I didn't want to have 40-minute videos, but we're getting pretty close. I'm going to try and speed through the rest of this to see if there's anything else that was very cool that we missed. Yep, here again. So now that he didn't do anything to stop this, it now says that that's still the move I should make. I'm kind of freeing up a little bit of space. And now once again it says, hey, you can still do this, it's still good, and I still don't. So I run my horse away, and it really doesn't like that at all. He's finally able to seal that off, and now this is no longer here. So a good 3 or 4 turns where I coulda, shoulda, woulda, didn't, but that's fine. So At this point, normal move, normal move. Ooh, it really likes this pawn pushing. I only have one piece on it, though. Huh. Why does it like this pawn push? Really? You still want me to jump in here? Why? What am I missing? Why does it like this? Oh, okay, because now this guy is free. Holy crap. Man, chess engines are so good. And then I would still be attacking an unprotected piece while he's got a pawn. That's fine. Holy crap. Chess engines are so freaking good. Because it looks like I'm blundering away a pawn and then blundering away a piece in order to win this guy. But hey, like I said, this is the things that I'm trying to focus on and trying to look at. Not just like weakened squares and pawn formations and stuff like that, but unprotected pieces, or even pieces that are only protected once, if you can get combinations on them. This guy is only protected once, this guy is completely unprotected. I should really be trying to look at anything that could possibly attack it. Even if it ends up being nothing, let's at least take the look. Let's see, well, what if I did something stupid like throw away a piece and make him recapture? Does it open something up? You know, does it open something up like we sometimes accidentally do into good moves? And, you know, is there something you can create with that? And when there's unprotected pieces, that's how you do things like that. So I'm actually really glad that I just wanted to see what the computer was thinking with that, because now I feel like I learned a little bit more. So attack unprotected pieces, good thing. Or if it's only protected one time, also good thing, because that would also leave him unprotected. So very, very cool. I didn't do it. I think this game doesn't like me right now. I lose a pawn and a half. That's okay. Got some trades. Yeah, he suggests there, so that way nothing bad happens to him. Not realizing that he just opened all that up. Take those things over, and now we're back where we should be, with me with a little bit of a lead here. It does like me to push this to undouble it. That's interesting. It wants him to go here and just ignore it. Holy crap. Move your bishop somewhere. Move your bishop somewhere. That's what it wants him to do. That's so funny. So he takes... Ooh, what's this? What's this? It's not even the pawn at all. It's this, or this, or this. It doesn't even like the move that I would have thought would be aesthetically the best. Okay, well, why would it like this square? If I push here, it's attacking the queen. Well, so is his pawn. Or he would take with the pawn. I could take with the horse. I have a discovered attack on the queen with an attack on the bishop and an attack on this pawn, which is a combination, though the bishop is guarding it. My horse is guarded by the queen. I still don't really see what I gain on it. His queen would have to move somewhere, but am I able to really even take any sort of advantage with it? Oh! Because my rook is still on the same bishop too. It's a combination square too. But right now the queen's in the way, so I'm not thinking about that. Yeah, so both of these would have major pieces with support from the knight. Okay, so yeah, it really likes him there. It doesn't even suggest taking it. It's just keeping it there to block the square off from my knight. Okay, well yeah, that's cool, because if takes, and then takes, he's just in a little bit of trouble. It says offer a queen sacrifice and maybe your opponent will bail you out. Otherwise there's some big problems. So very cool, very cool. I did not see that at all either. I just saw a way to win the pawn instead. So that's what we did. Won a pawn, and yep, took advantage of all the best things to do. Ooh, wait a second, it wants me to win this pawn now? Why does it want me to win that pawn? Because my queen's over here. If I go here... what did I not see? Oh, I win this bishop. That's why. Okay. Well, I was going to win the bishop either way, right? Huh. So I took this pawn. No, I traded queens. And then I took the pawn. Yeah, so I traded queens, and then I took the pawn, and then I took the bishop, and then I took the pawn, but I let the horse get taken. So this ended up being a trade instead of just winning it. Okay. Interesting. So I guess even if you see a good move, always look for more even better moves, because you got the time. But I think that's going to do it for shenanigans that we could have done here. Wants me to go here? I guess because I want the pawn, though. Wants me to give up the knight. Or go here. I don't know, I don't hate that move, but that's fine. So, anyway, now at this point it's just random endgame shenanigans, and it's no point in really looking, because the evaluation is going to be lopsided as hell anyway. And that's fine. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Damn it, 40 minutes. I was really trying to have it not be 40 minutes, but alas, it was a long game and I talked too much. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully I'll see you around for more. Have a happy New Year, and I will catch you guys pretty soon. I'm hoping to stream tomorrow on New Year's Eve, so we'll see. And got a couple more videos to make too. So thank you all for watching. Take it easy. Catch you later. Have a good weekend and a good New Year. Peace.